Hey, sometimes when you're drafting, you want to be a little risky, right? You don't want to do every single draft of the offseason playing it safe, looking for those high floor players. Every once in a while, you want to go for those high ceilings. In fact, I wanted to verify what the definition of risky was, so I went and got the definition. And the definition of risky is slightly indecent and liable to shock, especially by being sexually suggestive. Wait, that's being risque. Well, whether you're being risky or risque, whatever you do in the privacy of your own home and bedroom is up to you, whether it has to do with football or other things. But when you want to be a little bit risky, you can do that in fantasy football and turn out a pretty good team. Just remember, whether you're being risky or risque, at the end of the night, you might be hurting a little bit. So just be safe about it. Hey, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle here with the Fantasy Headliners, and as always, it is another Pop, Lock, and Mock It Monday here at the Fantasy Headliners. As we do every Monday, we do a mock draft and talk about some different scenarios with you. And once again, I put out the bat signal for Headliner Nation to help us out and called on our fabulous Patreon members to do a mock draft with us over on Sleeper. Now, going into this draft, I made a decision that I was going to go one of two ways. I was either going to be super safe or be super risky with my draft, and it all depended on who was going to be there at the 1.4. But I was going to go one of the other ways, and I was going to try and stick with it throughout the entire draft. But you've probably caught on at this point by the opening of the video that I was a little bit more risky with this draft. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how this mock draft Monday turned out for me. All right, Headliner Nation, we're going to go one of two routes in this mock draft tonight. And the routes that I'm going to end up going is going to really depend on who ends up being my first round pick. And it's not necessarily that we have to do this. I'm wanting to see how these things play out and show you how these things play out. So I'm either going to be going with a really safe draft or a really high upside but risky draft. And it's all going to depend on who is there at the 1.4. And you've heard Jake talk about this, about setting up your queues. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do that and set up my queue a little bit right now, because I'm either going to be going with Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel Elliott at the 1.4. But then also towards the end of the second round, I'm also going to be looking at a couple of other people. I'm going to be looking at Kenny Galladay, and I'm going to be looking at Amari Cooper. And again, we're going to have to go back and forth a little bit. But with that being said, I want to see what route we can play out the best here. But I'm also going to end up throwing in an Austin Eckler and a Kenyon Drake, just in case they end up coming down to me as well. But this is just your standard half PPR type of league. We do have 14 players in here, or 14 people drafting tonight, just to make it play out a little bit more. We're going to be doing a 30-second clock to make it run through a little bit quicker as well. So we're going to go ahead and get the draft started. And now we are moving here. And again, 30-second clock here for these picks. And then we'll kind of see how everything plays out. And here you can see it playing out. The last time we did this draft, I just did the recording itself, but I want to talk through it a little bit. So there we go. That's what we see right there. That was that pick that I was waiting on, Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook to go in front of me. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook, I do have a little bit lower in my rankings. I do have him more towards the back end of running back ones, but I have said this over and over and over to everybody again, and I just want to continue to explain it. Dalvin Cook has so much upside this season, but it depends on how risk averse you are. Me personally, even though I've got him around my running back 6 or 7, still kind of playing with the idea of going to those two spots, I'm probably fading him in the first round and going with other people instead. However, here in this mock draft, I'm going to go with him super early because he has top 5 potential. If he were to play a full 16 games, he's locked in as a top 5 player in that offense. I am a little worried it doesn't happen, but because he has so much upside, again, I'm still okay with locking him up here to show you more of a little bit high upside, risk adverse type of draft here. So again, a big running back run here at the beginning of the draft, and this happens here with our Patreon members at Headliner Nation. They think along the same lines as we do. They watch us quite often and talk about a heavy running back format, and that is why everyone is getting their running backs early, because they do tend to agree with some of the things that we have to say. We've seen Joe Mixon there going at the 1.9. If you did miss it this past weekend, my must-have video with Joe Mixon did drop. So if you are interested in checking that out, make sure you go back and do that. Again, that just dropped this weekend, and you can get a chance to see for yourself why you should not be passing on Joe Mixon. And Josh Jacobs went up there as well. Now, I am surprised that Chris Kennedy went with Miles Sanders over Nick Chubb. I just tweeted something earlier today in Dynasty Leagues. Why would you take Miles Sanders over Nick Chubb? But that's okay. I'm not going to give him too much grief for it. I do like Miles Sanders this year, but oh man, give me Nick Chubb easily over him. Love Nick Chubb this year. There goes Austin Eckler. Knew that was probably going to end up happening. He was going to be gone off the board. And Kenyon Drake will probably be gone off the board as well by the time it gets to me. Again, I was just kind of tossing those names up there. As we come back to our pick at 2.11, again, this is a 14-team league, so it's a little bit deeper. We only have 5 bench spots, I believe, is what I ended up doing. No, I did do 4. No kicker and no defense, again, because, the players that we're really focusing on, the draft strategy that we're focusing on doesn't include all those. And, I want to keep the video a little bit on the lighter side. I don't want you sitting around here for an hour watching a mock draft play out. So I want to make sure that we're moving through these picks pretty quickly and that the draft is a little bit shorter for you to enjoy all of those picks. Ooh, we did have a timeout there at the very end. They must have been trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to do. It is only a 30-second clock, but a start of Kenyon Drake and Devontae Adams in a 14-team league is not bad at all. Icklewick going there with Tyreek Hill and Aaron Jones, a lot of upside there. Aaron Jones, though, he's got to get more work in the passing game this year to inflate some of those TDs that he will probably end up losing. Well, let's see where Matt St. G ends up going here. He went with Austin Eckler with his first pick there at 1.12. Love that pick. Great for him. And then he snipes my boy Kenny Golladay there. So I love that start for Matt St. G. We've got another one there going Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette. And we'll see where Chris goes here. Since Chris went Miles Sanders in the first round, we'll see what he ends up doing here. In terms of what I want to do at the 2.11, my hope is really that Amari Cooper is there. And if Amari Cooper is there, then we're really cooking on that boomer bust, high upside type of draft that I really want to play out here for you to see happen. And again, with those high upside risk drafts, that's going to happen sometimes, right? It's going to end up happening sometimes where we get into a position where we really want our team to have as much upside as possible. And sometimes when that happens, we end up getting a bunch of guys that have potential issues that could play out, whether it be an injury issue, a usage issue. And we just have to make sure as we're going through the draft that we know that going into it. And if you play in a lot of fantasy leagues, and here's the thing, we haven't really talked about this on this channel and all of our mock drafts and all of our draft strategies. This isn't something that we've really talked about that often, but I think it's a really good idea to keep in play is when you draft multiple leagues, let's say you're in several leagues a year, try to diversify a little bit. If it's a league that you're joining for fun, it doesn't have any money line on the line or anything like that, try to diversify a little bit. And these are the type of lineups that really help with that diversity because you're not going with all the same players. Because let's say you have 5 fantasy teams, and of those 5 fantasy teams, you have a roster that consists of several of the same players over and over and over. Well, if something happens to some of those players, now your entire fantasy season is ruined, and none of your players are or none of your teams are going to do well because all those players you liked ended up getting hurt, going down with an injury, whatever it may be. So that's why I tell you to diversify a little bit. So when you go into this, you can say, you know what? Yeah, there's a couple of teams that might not work out well, but that's okay. We're going to be just fine. because I have a couple of teams that are different than the norm. So if I do have an injury or anything happens, we'll be okay. We still have a chance to win there. So again, diversifying those lineups a little bit. And this is one of those instances with this type of a lineup that it's really easy to do that. Chris Carson goes there, and that's going to leave us to take Amari Cooper. Now, just taking a quick look at the running backs here. Not really anybody I want to grab right now. I'm hoping James Conner, Devin Singletary can make it to me. So we're going to bounce back here. We're going to go ahead and take Amari Cooper. Hashtag always Amari. I really like Amari Cooper. I'm going to be having a must-own video on him as well to show you all what exactly he could do this year. And again, this is a really upside type of lineup. Dalvin Cook and Amari Cooper both have such a high ceiling on any given week, and even with CeeDee Lamb coming in, and I will talk more about that. Okay, don't worry about that. With CeeDee Lamb coming in, I'm going to be talking more about why Amari Cooper still has a tremendous ceiling, even with CeeDee Lamb on that must-have video that I do. So I'm still prepared to invest in Amari Cooper 110% this year. So let's see how everything else is playing out here. Coming here in the 1.2, some of these names are running together, so I might not be able to say all those names. I apologize. The 1.2 here, Saquon Barkley, DJ Moore. Does he end up going with Devin Singletary here? Because Devin Singletary is basically going to be my next pick if he's still there. If we're going to go running back heavy, these two guys both could take a shot at him. I had to probably take Amari Cooper here, though. I could not. He probably would not have made it all the way back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ends up going here, and we'll see what Vincent Tran does here. He's going to snipe me, isn't he? Watch. Oh, no, he went with George Kittle, okay? So I like the way this is playing out. Now, with high upside, there's a couple of different things that we could do right here, and 2 draft picks I like in this area. It is Devin Singletary, and DK Metcalf has a lot of upside as well for me. He's going to be a little bit safer, I believe, this year than Tyler Lockett. But in this space right here, I got to get my running back too. Okay, I got to get my running back too in Devin Singletary. If you saw the mock draft I did a couple of weeks ago with our Headliner Nation Patreon members, this was one of my concerns in that mock draft. I drafted later in the first round, and I ended up going with Mike Evans and Tyreek Hill in the first round and the second round just because that's the way it fell. The first 9 picks were all running backs. So really when it got to me, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for me to take my running back 1 in a situation that I felt really equaled the value in which I was drafting him. So I just went ahead and went with Mike Evans, and I went with Tyreek Hill. But the problem is that the run on running backs was so fast and so crazy through the first 3 rounds, I was basically screwed. So in this mock draft, again, going back to that heavy wide receiver draft strategy that I am constantly using, because I always want to make sure that I am solidified at running back. And if you caught my video that I did a few days ago, just before the weekend, I think it was last Wednesday that it dropped, my dynamic running back rating video that gave you a sneak peek into our draft guide, I talked about Devin Singletary in that video. And one of the people that I basically compared him to was Aaron Jones. Because 2 years ago, before the 2019 season, in 2018, when I pulled all the dynamic running back rating statistics and ratings from that, Aaron Jones looked to be going towards a breakout season based on his dynamic statistics. And Devin Singletary really kind of profiles some of the same things that we saw from Aaron Jones in 2018 from Singletary's 2019 season. So he has a lot of upside. I don't care about Zach Moss. TJ Yeldon is a decent handcuff there. But Devin Singletary could be in for a huge year, and I'm here for it, and I'm buying into it as my running back too. And that is why, again, I'm sticking with this high upside draft strategy. Devin Singletary has a ton of upside this year. So taking a look at what could possibly be sitting there for me when it comes back around. Probably not going to go tight end. I would really like to go with my wide receiver too. I would like Calvin Ridley to be there. If Calvin Ridley would be there, he is a guy that I do believe has a ton of upside this year. I just talked about DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf has a lot of upside this year. We'll actually change this over to wide receiver right here. Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy that I think gets some of that upside back. Odell Beckham Jr. Look how far down he is going right now. OBJ, and this is based on the ADP here from Sleeper. So we're doing this mock draft on Sleeper. So the ADP that you see on Sleeper could be potentially different, okay? Differing on the websites that you go to, the places that you're mock drafting through, whatever it may be. The one thing that we do with our draft guide this year is we actually have ADP data in it. We pull ADP data from multiple websites across the fantasy football industry with actual drafts going on. And if you hear any banging in the background, people are setting off fireworks. So trying to record this video over the 4th of July holiday, and they are setting off some fireworks in the back right now. So if you hear any booms, don't worry about it. My house is not crashing down. People are just enjoying the weekend. So going back to it, Odell Beckham Jr. there. So Calvin Ridley ended up going off the board. Man, if OBJ can get all the way back to me, I'm going to be pumped about this start. Absolutely pumped, because this becomes a huge risk versus reward type of roster where there will be a lot of risk, but I don't really care. I mean, guys like A.J. Brown, Adam Thielen, T.Y. Hilton, Calvin Ridley going over OBJ. A year ago, OBJ was a end of the first round, beginning of the second round pick. 2 years ago, he was a locked-in first-round pick. Odell Beckham Jr. going there at the 4.4. Perfect pick there. That was a great one. Marquise Brown is another high upside wide receiver as well that I really like this year, so I'm going to go ahead and put him on the board there as well. And also Brandon Cooks. Now, I'm gonna end up taking a step back here, though, because Marquise Brown and Brandon Cooks, we got these guys going in the 60s here. So I want to go back to and I want to see, based on our ADP, who do we have hanging around this area right now? Because I definitely don't want to move too soon. I don't know if I want to spend a 4th round pick on Marquise Brown, to be honest with you. Let's take a look at what we have at running back. I already saw a name pop up there that I'm going to keep an eye on, and that's Jonathan Taylor. I doubt he makes it to me. He doesn't. So Jonathan Taylor doesn't make it to me as I'm actually saying his name. So I put Kareem Hunt in there. We're going to talk about in a minute. So Kareem Hunt, he is there. He is a guy I'm going to keep an eye on as well. He's got some upside on a weekly basis, catching the ball out of the backfield. Darius Geis is another guy that has a lot of upside for me as well. So I'm going to have to make a choice here. Do I want to go ahead and go like wide receiver? Do I want to go running back and wide receiver? We do start in this format. We've got basically 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, but we have 2 flex options. And in my flex, I really want to have as much volume as possible, and that's going to come from the running back position. So let's see what happens over these next couple of picks. This start here by Dixie Rose, Texas, Kareem Hunt goes right there to Chris. Not surprised at all. So even though I really don't want to do it here at 4.11, it is a little bit early. I'm going to go ahead and go with Darius Geis. Now, the reason I'm going with Darius Geis here is because give me my 3 running backs. If Darius Geis is just splitting touches with Adrian Peterson, because Darius Geis does such a great job on a per-touch basis of being highly efficient in his playmaking ability. He's got decent upside there for me. Okay, so that's why I'm going to go with Darius Geis, and he's only my running back 3. Let's say they look at Darius Geis, he stays healthy, and they give him the play there. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. If I would have seen Travis Kelce was there, I would have taken Travis Kelce. That is a big miss on my part. Part of it is because I'm trying to talk to you and break things down. So I'm acknowledging that right now. I should have taken Travis Kelce there instead. That was a huge mistake on my part, and that was a great pick by the whoever it is there in number 2. So that was a huge miss on my part. I should have went Travis Kelce. I just didn't see in there because I was so focused on talking about some specific player. So that is 100% my bad there. Should have taken Travis Kelce. So 5.4 coming up here really soon. Going to end up going with probably Marquise Brown if he is available. I'm going to switch this back over to all here real quick. I like that James White pick there. He's got a really good roster so far. Really good roster. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, don't love it, but that's okay. So I'm going to end up going with Marquise Brown here. I don't love Marquise Brown as my wide receiver 2 for any reason whatsoever. And actually, no, I'm going to skip Marquise Brown because you know who just popped up? Terry McLaurin. I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin. Lots of upside. Definitely love him as my wide receiver 2 a lot more than what I would love Marquise Brown. So we're going to end up adding Marquise Brown back here. There he is right there. So Marquise Brown, I'm going to go ahead and add him back right there. Jarvis Landry is another guy that we want to keep an eye on. I don't know if Jarvis Landry is really a high upside play, though. Again, we're putting together more of a risky roster here right now. Obviously, if I could have gotten Travis Kelce there and then gotten Darius Geis here instead, or Terry McLaurin, that would have worked out a lot better. Again, missed that pick, though, unfortunately. That happens. It's just a mock. It's okay. When I do my actual drafts, and when you do your drafts, you're not going to be trying to create a video and talk to Headliner Nation and put all of that information together. So Ronald Jones ends up going here at the 5.7 in the 5th round in a 14-team league. Not too bad. Keep that in mind as well. There's 14 people drafting right now, not 12. So there's 14. So it is a little bit deeper right now than what we're probably used to doing. Let's jump back over to all because I want to see. I'm going to start marking some quarterbacks. Kyler Murray's got a lot of upside, so we're going to go ahead and put him in our queue. Russell Wilson, a lot of upside. Dak Prescott, a lot of upside. So there's a lot of people with upside right here that I really like. Stafford's got a lot of upside, so I'm just going to queue up some quarterbacks there that I really like. Let's take a look at the tight ends as well. Darren Waller, Evan Ingram, like he's going to be the definition of risk versus reward at the tight end position. So if I'm wanting to stick to that strategy and stay true to drafting a really risky team that has a ton of upside, then Evan Ingram is definitely going to be my guy there. Chris Kennedy, man, Chris, you're really timing out over there. I'm going to give Chris a little bit of grief here. If y'all know Chris, he's one of our much appreciated staff members here at the Fantasy Headliners. Chris's main job here is handling all of our DFS content, and the dude is crushing it, by the way. So if you're interested in playing in some DFS, it's only $20 a month to join that package over on Patreon. A lot of good stuff. Marquise Brown goes there at 5.11. Right there in the 11 spot. Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham Jr., Marquise Brown. I don't love the Leonard Fournette pick at 2.4. What I would have loved is if he went Todd Gurley instead, because I like Todd Gurley over Leonard Fournette this year. If he had Chubb, Gurley, Allen, Odell Beckham Jr., and Brown, that would be a huge roster. I would absolutely love that. Back down to Icklewick, who we were talking a little bit ago. He goes with Michael Gallup at the 5.13. His wide receivers after Tyreek Hill do worry me a little bit, and he only has one running back right now, and it's a running back who is very risky for me this year. So I am a little bit worried about that pick there. I am not in love with it. We've seen a couple of people time out, but we are doing a 30-second clock, which is a lot quicker than what people are used to, and I asked him if we could do that to, again, kind of keep up on keeping the video a little bit shorter for all of you. So Evan Ingram goes there at the 6.1. Man, I was really hoping Evan Ingram would end up making it to me because, again, he would be like the perfect fit for this team. Even though I've got 3 running backs, I am just going to take a stroll down through here and see who we have kind of down through here. Alexander Madison is a guy that we're going to want to get our hands on pretty soon. We're going to want that backup to Dalvin Cook in case he does go down with an injury or anything like that. Keyshawn Vaughn, even though I don't love him, he is another guy that I'm going to go ahead and put on the roster here. He could end up being, on the queue here, because he is a guy that could end up being a high upside play, especially if he ends up getting quite a bit of touches. I still think Ronald Jones ends up winning that job. Vaughn's going to see some time, but I think Jones ends up seeing a bit more. And I'm kind of just searching through here to just throw a few people over there because we want to make sure that we have enough. Anthony McFarland, another guy that I really, really enjoy this year that I'm trying to get everywhere that I possibly can. Brandon Cooks ends up going off the board at 6.4. So that's another high upside pick that we were kind of looking to there as well. Matt Breida is another guy, a high upside running back play that we might want to take a look at later on. Now, because we only have 2 wide receivers, Will Fuller, man. Here's the thing about Will Fuller. Will Fuller is a very good player. Will Fuller puts up points when he's on the field. Will Fuller has trouble staying on the field. And that's why he is such a risky play. But man, the reason I don't really push him that hard on people because of his injury profile, But if the dude ever puts together a full 16 games, you want to be invested in him. And if you get a little bit later in the draft, and again, if you're looking at either drafting a high upside pick a little bit later, or you're putting together a roster with as much upside as it possibly can have, then Will Fuller is a guy that I think you should be taking a look at this year. Because again, if he puts together a fully healthy season, he is a guy that 100% could have a huge year. Going to want to scroll down here a little bit as we get a little bit deeper into the draft. So we're going to go ahead and hide some of these first few rounds here so we can keep an eye on what's going on. Deontay Johnson going off at 6.8. I'm going to be up at the next pick here. Julian Edelman is another guy as well that I'm keeping my eye on, because with Julian Edelman, he's going to start working his way up the draft boards really, really soon because of Cam Newton signing there. So I'm actually going to go with Julian Edelman right here because, again, people are going to say, well, Kyle, isn't that more of a safe pick? Will Fuller would have been a little bit more upside. Julian Edelman is still a risk. He's still a risk because Cam Newton is just signing with them. He's got a little bit of time to go, but I think he goes well with the wide receivers that I already have. Julian Edelman should see a decent ceiling every single week. Mecole Hardman going this early is quite surprising, but I do love Mecole Hardman this year. It's just, can he get on the field consistently, and can he put together consistent production? But anyway, back to Julian Edelman. But because of that, he should have a decent floor as well. So if you were to look at a chart on where the ceiling is and where the floor is, Julian Edelman's ceiling might be a little bit lower than some people, but his floor will be a little bit higher. The ceiling will still be higher than others, though. So I do like him. I think he has a pretty decent ceiling now that Cam Newton is there. But because you have so much upside in Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper, to make a pick like this late, not that bad, because now you get a guy that should end up being peppered with targets, and you don't have to worry about potentially having such a bad week that you lose because all of your wide receivers went crap on you. Best pick here would be Will Fuller, and Will Fuller goes right before me, of course. Vincent, good pick, my man. Good pick on taking him. So let's think for a second here. So we've got 3 wide receivers. We've got our 3 running backs. We could end up going with a tight end here with Darren Waller. Rob Gronkowski is a guy this year that I'm not really on. I'm kind of off Rob Gronkowski. I'm going to go ahead and take him here, though, because, again, we're looking for high upside plays with this team. And I timed out. Ooh, I got the Rob Gronkowski pick just in time. I accidentally clicked the wrong button. I added him to the queue instead of adding him to the draft board there and taking him. But I ended up getting the pick in just in time, so we are solid. But the reason I'm going to go with Rob Gronkowski there, and even though I've listed him as a bust this season, is because I think his floor is really, really low, but his ceiling could be really, really high. He might not get that volume that we've seen in the past, but he could absolutely get those touchdowns that we've seen in the past. He could end up being Tom Brady's #1 target in the red zone. I ended up getting sniped there from Alexander Madison, so my backup to Dalvin Cook ends up going at 7.7. Was really hoping he'd last to the next round. That doesn't happen. That's okay. My next pick, more than likely, looking at it the way that it is right now, Matthew Stafford and Matt Breida are my next couple of choices. Matt Breida is a guy. Jordan Howard is the safer player there, but Matt Breida for me is the higher upside play. He's a little bit more of an athlete that can put together quite a few yards in the air or on the ground. We'll probably have some bigger plays than Jordan Howard. And again, kind of fits the definition of what I am trying to do here. And again, just to remind you, I'm looking at a roster here that has a lot of upside. I'm not caring about risk with this roster. The only thing I'm caring about is how much upside does each player that I draft absolutely have. And so far, outside of the Julian Edelman pick and me missing Travis Kelce there in the 4th round and not realizing he was still on the board, Darius Geis going there instead. Would have rather switched that around, but I think we are right on board with kind of what I was trying to do in this draft. Matt Ryan goes there at the 7.11. Matt St. G here. Kenny Galladay, Raheem Mostert, DK Metcalf. I'm not minding this roster here at all. Matt St. G is putting together a pretty decent roster. Austin Eckler, Kenny Galladay, Raheem Mostert. Not really high on Raheem Mostert this year. A lot of other people are really, really high on him. As your running back too, though, I don't hate it. I think personally, though, if I was doing a heavy running back strategy, I'd rather have him as my running back 3. Latavius Murray ends up being his running back 3. So outside, he's got Eckler. The next 2 picks at running back do worry me a little bit, but he's got decent wide receivers with Kenny Galladay and DK Metcalf. He grabs Zach Ertz here. One thing I'm kind of seeing who goes after, instead of Zach Ertz here, like a Brandon Cooks, a Julian Edelman, Devontae Parker, those guys going there. I probably would have liked to see that a little bit more, but that's okay. Still putting together a good roster there. Let's take a look at Dixie Rose, Texas here. Our good friend Anna. We always see her in the live chat. She's one of our MVP Patreon members. She's off to a pretty good start here. Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, good picks. DeAndre Hopkins in the middle of the second in a 14-team draft. I'm liking that. Even though I'm a little bit lower on Hopkins this year, this is still a good spot for him. These running backs, David Montgomery, Jonathan Taylor, Damian Williams, a little bit of risk here, but some decent upside. Montgomery, obviously the main running back there, should still see more than enough volume. Jonathan Taylor might start off a little bit slow, but he should at some point this year take that job away from Marlon Mack, and then we don't really need to worry about Marlon Mack that much more anyway. Chris here, Chris Chouse. Chris, if you're a Patreon member, Chris leads our Patreon podcast that we do. Starts with Josh Jacobs. Absolutely love it. Then goes Mike Adams, Evan Thielen, Kareem Hunt, Cortland Sutton, and then Tevin Coleman, Drew Brees. A lot of upside here, too. Darius Slayton ends up going there. He was a guy that was kind of hoping would last a little bit longer. I'm not really surprised, though. So far on my team, need a quarterback. I've got my 2 running backs, Cook and Singletary. I got my 2 wide receivers, Cooper and McLaurin. I've got Gronk at tight end. I've got Geis and Edelman in the flex right now. So the main things that I want to do right now is I want to go ahead and probably take my starting quarterback soon, and then I want another running back. I'm going to continue to wait on tight end because honestly, I've already got Gronk. I don't know if I really need a second tight end, but if I do, Jonnu Smith is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw him over there into my queue so I don't forget about him. And then let's jump over here to wide receiver. Let's just take a look here. John Brown, another guy with upside. Mike Williams is another guy that I've talked about this year that has some upside play this season and absolutely fits with what we are trying to do with this roster. So let's take a look at the teams in front of me. All 3 of them have quarterbacks, so none of them are taking Matthew Stafford. So I'm going to go ahead and take Matt Breida with my next pick here because Stafford's going to be available for me when it comes back around. So we'll be good there. So we'll go ahead and skip on Stafford so we can take Matt Breida, a guy, again, looking at pure upside and not worrying about anything else. Matt Breida has, even though he's got some risk there, Matt Breida is still a guy that's got a good amount of upside, and he's going to be my running back 4. So scrolling back up here again, really, really deep here in the first. Only 2 wide receivers taken. And then in the first 2 rounds, look at all these running backs. Running backs are going really, really early this year. There are not a whole lot of people that have said, oh, let's wait on running back. Because we've seen that over the last couple of years where people are like, oh, we can wait on running back this year. It's as deep as it's ever been. And with committees now, we can get running backs in all, in all rounds of our draft. And here at the Fantasy Headliners, we keep telling you, it doesn't matter if it's deep or not, okay? You get as many running backs as you can, and you get them early. And the industry and people around us are starting to agree because even though it's deep, get as many running backs early on as you can so you get your choice. And then because wide receiver is so much deeper, you're going to have a lot of that upside there. Is there anybody that doesn't have a quarterback yet? We don't have a quarterback here. We don't have a quarterback here. It doesn't look like we have a quarterback here. So, yeah, I got to go Stafford. If I don't go Stafford now, I'm probably going to end up missing out on him. Unless Vincent were to snipe me again. That's not going to happen. Good job, Vincent. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford here. So now I've got my quarterback. I like this play. A lot of upside with Matthew Stafford as well. And now we just got 3 bench spots that we need to fill. I'm feeling pretty good about this team. I don't think it's the best in this draft. I don't think it's the best team I've ever drafted. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I absolutely knocked it out of the park with this draft. Again, missing Travis Kelce there up in the 4th round was a disaster. Honestly, that was a big miss on my part. Again, though, like I said, you're not going to be doing videos and things when you're trying to draft and talk about players and looking at all these things around you. And I'm just making a bunch of excuses right now for my awful mistake there. But if I could have locked in Travis Kelce up here instead where Darius Geis was. But, I did miss out on Travis Kelce. But, I'm feeling good about these running backs in terms of our high upside plays. So these running backs were really good for this strategy. I think our wide receivers are really good for this strategy. I think Gronk fits into this strategy well. I think Stafford fits into this strategy well. So again, the strategy here at the beginning of the draft going into it, we said we're going to go one or two ways. At the beginning of the draft, we said we're either going to go with an extremely safe draft. If Zeke falls to us at 1.4, we're going to go with Zeke. We're going to play it safe throughout the entire draft. If Dalvin Cook falls to us at 1.4, we're going to go with Dalvin Cook. We're going to play it risky the entire draft, but we're going to look for as much upside as possible. And so far, that's what we've been doing. My hope is that Mike Williams gets back to me. Mike Williams would be my next pick. Again, if we're looking at strictly upside, these are kind of the next 3 guys that I would really like to take. Preston Williams, I think, also kind of fits into that category. He was doing really well last year before his injury, so I like him. Justin Jefferson, I'm not really banking on any, too many rookie wide receivers. I don't mind Justin Jefferson. I don't think he's going to have a huge year or anything like that. N'Keal Harry could end up breaking out. Robbie Anderson has some upside. My boy Jalen Reagor, we got to add him, right? We got to try and get Jalen Reagor. I get sniped on Jalen Reagor in every single freaking mock I do this year. So we got to have him. Brandon Ayuk is another guy that we probably want to put over there as well. And let's take a look. Let's just hop back over to running back and just roll through here. Darrell Henderson, Zach Moss. Nope. Justin Jackson, Antonio Gibson, Duke Johnson is a guy. Duke Johnson I'm going to put on my radar here. If anything happens to David Johnson and we finally, for the first time ever, see Duke Johnson. There goes Jalen Reagor by Matt St. G. Thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate it, man. But for the first time ever, if something happens this year to David Johnson and Duke Johnson finally gets the work, holy moly. Duke Johnson is a guy that if I own David Johnson, I'm going to try and add Duke Johnson everywhere I possibly can. Because the dude, if he gets the workload, he's going to put together such a terrific season. It drives me nuts. The dude is so athletically talented and gifted. He just hasn't gotten a fair shake of it yet. Sterling Shepard ends up going to Chris Kennedy there. We had a conversation about those wide receivers a couple of weeks ago. I know that he is liking Sterling Shepard a little bit more than I am this year. Icklewick goes at the end here with a couple of decent picks. Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, some handcuffs there to own. Tony Pollard is a guy that I talk about a little bit more in my dynamic running back rating because in the draft guide, because if the dude were to get a decent workload for once, he's a freak. The dude can do a lot of things dynamically. Anthony McFarland Jr. comes off the board there. Dang it, Matt St. G is killing me right now. He ends up taking Jalen Reagor. He takes Anthony McFarland Jr. Both guys I had there. Kenny Galladay I was hoping would fall a lot farther, but he didn't. That's all right, though. Matt St. G knocking it out of the park. And someone over in the you can't really see all the comments right now. The chat's over on the right-hand side. Someone made a comment about Anthony McFarland going already. He's going already because people know. I've been talking about Anthony McFarland for a while. And again, these are all our Patreon members that are in this mock draft with us. So they're paying close attention to what we are saying. And, yep, Anthony McFarland is the guy that I've been pushing as a late round pick. Let's see. Justin Jefferson goes there. Carson Wentz in the 10.5. And Daniel Jones is a guy I'm starting to like more and more and more this year. He's going to be in one of our league winner videos. And a little bit difference between the two videos. So we do must-haves and league winners. Must-haves are those big name guys that we absolutely have to get our hands on this season. League winners are guys that are going to be really good for you based on their ADP. The reason that they're league winners is because of the fact Duke Johnson going there to Dixie. Everybody, they're getting me. That's okay though. Good for them. I like seeing that. I like to see that they're paying attention and listening to us. Mike Williams ended up going too, right? Because I had him queued up. Where did he go? I don't even see him. Huh. I thought I had Mike Williams queued up. Did he end up going that far already? See, now I'm just wondering if I even had him queued up. Oh, yeah. No, never mind. Nope, I missed out on him. There he is right there at the 10.4. All right, so let's reverse course here. I'm going to go ahead and go with Brandon Ayuk and add him as another wide receiver option because we know that he's going to be getting some work here at the beginning of the season. With Deebo Samuel potentially missing sometimes. So we've only got a couple of more picks left here. Jonnu Smith is another guy. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of tight ends here, even though I've got Rob Gronkowski, just in case, there's anything that pops up during training camp. Maybe he misses a little bit of time, maybe getting back into it. He's just a little bit slower or whatever it may be. I might end up going with him here as well. Looking through some of these guys left here at this ADP that we're currently running into, there's not a whole lot. We get here till the end. When you get into these 11th and 12th rounds, especially in a 14-team league, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. You're trying to find some guys here at the very end of the draft that can present some good upside to you. Curtis Samuel's another guy too. And I think I'm going to go ahead and add Damian Harris to my queue. I'm going to put him there just because there's been a little bit of talk of Damian Harris out of camp, or not really out of camp, but by Boston sports writers. I don't typically listen to the writers too much. I do my own analysis and research. I keep a little bit plugged into that, but I think sometimes those beat writers for teams tend to, I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith here. They tend to, write. They tend to write more about what people want to hear instead of what is the actual truth. I just added Paris Campbell there as well. So I may end up adding Paris Campbell at the very end and run with him. But anyway, I still try to stay in touch with some of those things and just kind of hear what's going on and what some people are having to say. And Damian Harris is another guy that could end up popping up on some radars this year. He's a guy that, he didn't get that much playing time last year. They still have Sony Michel. They still have Rex Burkhead. They still have James White. So Damian Harris does have a little bit of work to do to get into the game a lot more often. But I think he could potentially do it. And I have no problems adding him this late in the draft to see if that ends up happening. With Sony Michel, he did have a little bit of a procedure there a few weeks back. I haven't seen anything saying that he would miss significant time this year because of it, or really any time at all. But let's say he does. And then Damian Harris has to kind of step in and be that next guy. So Damian Harris is a guy that, I'm probably going to add here in the last round. If he ends up going, then I'll take Paris Campbell instead. Some of these guys going here. Blake Jarwin is one that we get a few questions on because he was kind of one of those really talked about breakout candidates at tight end this year because Jason Witten, a year out of retirement on Monday Night Football, comes back and does pretty decent last year and puts together a good season. But I'm not going to be spending any picks on Blake Jarwin this year. TJ Hawkinson, going after him. I'd much rather have TJ Hawkinson. Timex 2132 there, going with that. Let's see what his roster looks like. So Mixon, Jones, great picks back-to-back here. I love this. A.J. Brown, a lot of upside, but I am worried about him. Not really feeling Melvin Gordon, but like the Landry pick, like the Howard pick, like the Henry pick. J.K. Dobbins this late isn't a bad pick. He goes with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback. T.J. Hawkinson late. He's already got Hunter Henry, so not a bad draft there by Timex as well. I haven't really seen any drafts so far in this that have made me say, ugh, don't really love that. Let's go take a look at Vincent real quick. Let's see what he did. Zeke and Godwin and Kittle and Jackson. So tons of upside there. Only problem is now you're stuck with Cam Akers as your running back 2. I don't really like that. And Antonio Gibson as your running back 3. So here's the one thing. Vincent, I like the way he starts this draft. But instead of going Lamar Jackson here, he probably should have went with James White or Le'Veon Bell, even though I don't love Le'Veon Bell. And even though James White, that might have been a little bit early, even though I love him this year, Probably go them over with Lamar Jackson and then hope Lamar Jackson comes back here. Because now Vincent is really, really shallow at running back. He's going to have some problems. If for some reason Zeke were to go down, he's going to be screwed. And we don't like to see that at the running back position. So he'd really have to work the waiver wire. Another thing, too, with Vincent's draft here, not to pick on you, Vincent. I know you're listening because you listen to everything we do, and we appreciate your support. With Vincent here, another thing that I'll critique a little bit is, Tony Pollard goes here at the 8.2. I'm probably looking to add him to my roster. If I look at this and I say, man, I'm really shallow at running back, and that's a concern for me, then I need to get Zeke's backup in Tony Pollard, because if for some reason, again, you lose Zeke, you got to have somebody there. So, and that's why that I would like to have Tony Pollard there. We're closing in on the end of the draft here. My next pick is coming up. And again, it's still going to end up being Damian Harris here for me in the last round. Again, I think he's a decent upside pick. And for some reason, James White is the guy. I mean, we've been, even before the Cam Newton signing, if you've been, sticking around and watching our offseason content, you know darn well I've been talking about James White for weeks now, saying have the guy on your radar. Where he's going right now is insane. I think I put him in our perfect draft section of the draft guide as well and really talked about him there. Is it CJ Sully? Are you going to? No, he didn't end up sniping me. Okay, so we're going to go with Damian Harris here. And that's going to end up wrapping up the mock draft. So again, taking a quick look here at the team. Not a bad team. Stafford at quarterback, Cook and Singletary at running back, Cooper and McLaurin at wide receiver, Gronkowski at tight end, Geis, Julian Edelman as my flex, and Breida, Brandon Ayuk, Jonnu Smith, and Damian Harris sitting there on my bench. There you have it, Headliner Nation, wrapping that mock draft up. Again, appreciate and a shout out to all of our Patreon members who jumped in and were a part of this with us today. So thanks so much for everybody tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Don't forget, you can go get our draft guide right now for $19.99 at thefantasyheadliners.com. And if you're new to the channel, this is your first time checking out a Fantasy Headliners video, make sure you hit that subscribe button below, become a part of Headliner Nation today, like the video, and then as always, drop any comments down below, except to tell me that I missed out on Travis Kelce. I already know, my bad. But anyway, Headliner Nation, hopefully you have a great rest of the week. Make sure you all stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.